shadow fleet. Second, we have already delivered about 130 billion euros of financial support, and we will deliver an additional 30 billion euro in 2025. Third, we will increase the pressure on those who directly or indirectly contribute to the international escalation of the war and damage international peace and security by supporting Russia. Finally, Ursula and I will continue to explore ways and means to increase the support to Ukraine. A final word on Ukraine. Let me be very clear about what this conflict is about. Russia's war of aggression is not just a war on European territory. It is a war against the international community, because Russia is violating universal fundamental principles of the United Nations Charter and international law: sovereignty, territorial integrity, self-determination. Which brings me to the second main focus of today's meeting, the global engagement of the European Union. The starting point for this is clear. The world is multipolar. Multipolarity creates new opportunities to develop mutually beneficial partnerships with countries on all continents. To do so, we must give up oversimplified concepts like Global South and acknowledge that both the South and the North are in fact plural. That means the European Union needs to strengthen its relationships with third countries around the world based on shared priorities, such as reforming multilateral organizations, protecting our international law, fighting climate change, preserving the oceans, or reducing poverty. We also discussed our relations with the United States of America. They remain one of our closest partners. And the message is clear. The European Union is committed to continue working with the United States pragmatically to strengthen transatlantic ties. The United Kingdom is another very strategic partner. There is a new positive energy in the European Union and the United Kingdom relations, which we should explore further. That's why I went to London very early in my term, and why I invited Prime Minister Keir Starmer to attend the upcoming informal leaders' retreat on defence on the 3rd of February. The European Council also discussed the Middle East, especially Syria. On Syria, we have agreed on the main principles and objectives of our approach in response to the fall of Assad regime and to ensure a peaceful and inclusive transition. Preserve Syria's territorial integrity, ensure respect for human rights, including women's rights, protect religious and ethnic minorities. The European Union is already engaging with actors on the ground, the new authorities, and other regional actors. It is delivering much-needed humanitarian assistance inside Syria, and the European Union will increase its diplomatic presence in Damascus. Finally, a word on what is to come. We will hold an informal retreat on defence on the 3rd of February. Today, we did not discuss economic issues, but they are fundamental for the lives of European citizens. I have therefore informed leaders that the March meeting of the European Council will have a strong focus on competitiveness, prosperity, trade and jobs. With this, I pass the floor to Ursula.
Thank you very much, Antonio, and congratulations on hosting your very first European Council. We had excellent discussions focusing, as you said, first of all, on Ukraine. And we know that 2025 is going to be a decisive year. It will be 3 years since the start of Russia's invasion. Putin is redoubling efforts to make gains, so bolstering Ukraine right now is both a moral and a strategic imperative for us. The world is watching how we sustain our support to Ukraine, and just like the brave Ukrainian resistance, we will be steadfast. So we need to make sure that Ukraine prevails. And as you said, we have to put Ukraine in a position of strength. Looking back, Europe has so far provided Ukraine with almost 130 billion euros. We have secured economic and financial stability until the end of 2025. That's good news. And with the Ukraine facility and our G7 loan, we're even covering most of Ukraine's financing gap for 2025. This is a major achievement, and it will also allow Ukraine to have more fiscal space to purchase the much-needed military equipment. One of the most immediate challenges is the energy system. Russia is systematically targeting it. We're constantly repairing it, but there's still a capacity gap. We must further improve interconnectivity with the European Union's grid. We also need to collectively do more on repairs and on decentralizing the electricity generation. For us, the goal is that in these darkest days of the year, we must keep the lights on in Ukraine. And in parallel, we continue to accompany Ukraine on its path of accession to our Union. If Ukraine keeps up the good work, we should be ready to open the first cluster of accession negotiations early next year. Some others could follow during that year as well. Then, as you said, Antonio, we discussed the Middle East and the situation in Syria. With the fall of Assad for the very first time in a decade, the people of Syria can hope for a better future. But we all know that for now the jury is still out. It is too early to say whether the new leadership will be able to deliver what they promise, whether the territorial integrity will be preserved, national unity will be preserved, and minorities will be protected. Europe will do its part to support Syria at this critical juncture. Because we care about Syria's future, Europe cares about the power going back to the people of Syria. And Europe has a role to play. Therefore, first of all, we engage with our regional partners. As you've described, Antonio, the situation in Syria can have important implications for them. This week I was in Jordan to meet King Abdullah following the Aqaba meeting in Amman. And I was also in Turkey for discussions with President Erdogan. Then it is important for us to intensify the contacts on the ground, to continue addressing the humanitarian needs of the people in Syria. We have established channels for political talks with HTS. This is building on the existing channels that we have through our humanitarian aid. We have had these channels all the time, while respecting the principle no contact, no cooperation, no funding of the Assad regime. But now it pays out to be on the ground there and have the first political channels with HTS and other factions. It is good that we have now our top diplomat and that he has returned to Damascus. Then we have to look at future steps, and we are already Syria's biggest donor. We are stepping up now our support. We have launched a humanitarian air bridge for delivery of aid via Turkey and via Jordan. And we have topped our humanitarian aid to more than 160 million euros for this year alone. But we are fully aware that more is needed. As you know, we have had the annual Syria conferences. They can be a powerful catalyst for this. Thanks to these conferences, we had mobilized in the past more than 33 billion euros. And now we are looking forward via this channel to continue to support the people in Syria with a focus on early recovery and on reconstruction. But in the same vein, I must say that these efforts will have to be matched by real deeds by the new leadership in Damascus. So it's a step-for-step approach that we are choosing here. We also discussed the issue of Syrians returning home. The situation on the ground remains very volatile. We're working very closely with the UNHCR. It is good that the UNHCR has access has access in the whole country of Syria. And one thing is very clear: with the support of the UNHCR, all returns must be voluntary, safe, and dignified. Let me move to my third and final point. We had indeed good discussions about our relationships with the United States and the rest of the world. We agreed that our priority must be to preserve a strong transatlantic relationship. We will proactively engage on a positive agenda with the President-elect. This is especially as we are significant trading partners and we share deeply integrated markets and supply chains. We have a joint interest in addressing global economic challenges, such as, for example, Chinese overcapacity. And at the same time, we are preparing ourselves for various scenarios. Moreover, we have a strong security partnership and share a long-standing commitment to transatlantic peace and stability. Last but not least, Victor, a word on the Hungarian presidency as it draws to a close. Your presidency came during the transition between two political cycles, so it's always a challenge. Still, I count many achievements during this term. You advanced your support to Ukraine with the adoption of the 15th sanctions package and the agreement on the G7 loan framework. I also want to highlight the ambitious Budapest Declaration. We all signed off on one goal, which is a competitive Europe. The declaration outlines the homework we must do so that Europe remains a prime destination for business. So a lot of work ahead of us in the new term. Your work also delivered a historic decision for Romania and Bulgaria. As of January 1st, 2025, internal land border controls will be lifted. They will be fully integrated into the Schengen area, and that's where they belong. This was a major step forward in deepening Europe internally. But your presidency also expanded Europe externally. This week you reached milestones on the accession path of Montenegro, Albania and Serbia, and finally you organized a very successful European Political Community Summit in early November. These are important achievements, so thank you for your efforts during the presidency.
Thank you very much.
Am I supposed to?
Please, Prime Minister.
Jó estét kívánok!
A very good evening to everyone. I will speak Hungarian if you don't mind. So the reason why I'm here is because Hungary was in the chair of the presidency of the European Union in the past 6 months. First off, thanks to Ursula von der Leyen and to the Commission for a very good cooperation. We managed to put aside all political disagreements in order to be able to work on important issues. Thank you to Antoniò Costa, although obviously for most of the time it was Charles Michel who was chairing our meetings, and he deserves thanks as well because he did a lot in order to achieve success. Now, where did we start our presidency and where are we now? we're faced with security issues. We have a war in Ukraine, in the Middle East, and in Africa. And we have a constant threat of escalation, illegal migration, and consequences were threatening the Schengen area. Our economic numbers are showing us that we're losing competitiveness across Europe and we're lagging behind our most important competitors. And in the meanwhile, all the other global players have very strategic ideas. Some want to come back and be big again, and others want to be even bigger again. So we thought we should be a political presidency. Well, actually, there are two options. You either have a political presidency or a bureaucratic one. Now, if it's a bureaucratic one, then obviously you just roll on the existing processes and keep things going. Now, if you want to have a political presidency, then you make political decisions. I was lucky. This is not my first presidency, so I know the ropes around these issues, and I know the two options. I already had the experience of being leading a presidency more than 11 years ago. So now I made the conscious choice of having a political presidency, and I had a very strong and able team to help me. Now, the most important political question is Ukraine. Here, I had no room for maneuver, because within the European Union, you don't have consensus. And if you don't have consensus, then you cannot do anything in the name of the European Council. So whatever I did in connection with the war, I had to do it apart and not within the European Union. It was a bilateral diplomacy that I had to use. As we speak, there is a proposal for a ceasefire that I achieved, not within the European context. Now, moving on to competitiveness. As Madame von der Leyen said, we are at a historic crossroads because we want to simplify things. We want to have energy that's affordable. We want to support SMEs. And we have clear deadlines for these tasks. And it is the European Council that should move these things forward. Well, this is where we're at the moment. Now, to those who are interested in technical issues, we have a document where you can see everything in detail. Now, this is just one page. There are 50 odd number of things that we have to do in order to become more competitive. That was just one page. So you can clearly see that we're looking at a very complicated and difficult task ahead of us. Now, another important point in our presidency was to have a conversation between ministers to talk about the future of Europe at the conference of. Now, as a next step, we move towards the Western Balkan. We talked to Albania. We had 3 intergovernmental meetings, and now we're almost at the level of being able to organize a similar event with Serbia, and this is a novelty in the past 2.5 years. Now, as the President of the Commission said, we made a decision about the Schengen partnership of Bulgaria and Romania. This has been on the agenda for the past 13 years. And it has not become a reality because there were always a group of countries that were blocking it. We were talking over a period of our presidency and trying to convince those countries that were blocking this decision and convince them that these two countries should get what they duly deserve, i.e. membership in the Schengen zone. I would like to also point out that during our presidency we had the first time that the 27 agricultural ministers managed to agree on the future of we managed to agree on the future of the common agricultural policy for the period after 2027. Now, I also think it's important that we managed to achieve a declaration on the principles of anti-Semitism and the betterment of Jewish life. And we agreed that this is something that's very important across the European Union. Now, over the past 6 months, I've begun to see it more clearly that the European Union has to be more ambitious in order to be able to survive. We have to think big. In other words, I'd like to suggest to the upcoming presidencies to be brave. Well, this was our slogan for our presidency: "Make Europe great again." This is our only chance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll take the question from Olivier.
Bonsoir, je vais poser ma question en français, si vous permettez.
I'd like to put a question in French. I'm from Agence France Presse over here. A question to the President of the European Council and the European Commission first. President Zelensky spent 2 days in Brussels to try to convince the Europeans to provide strong, tangible help, assistance. He went to NATO, and then he came to the European Union, and then he met with us in a press conference to explain that support simply from the Europeans, merely from the Europeans, wouldn't be enough. We also had to have cooperation, coordination with the USA. Donald Trump had to be part of the loop, if I can say that. What does the EU think about its place in the world, its autonomy, its capacity to act? Was this not noting weakness on the side of the Europeans, those who are speaking of peace and those who are talking about Ukraine winning the war? And a question for Mr. Orban, if possible. You are defending peace. You are a defensor of peace. Would you be prepared to send Hungarian troops to enforce a possible ceasefire?
C'est à moi?
Oui.
Eh bien, on a eu une participation.
President Zelensky took part in the European Council. It was very important. We had the opportunity to have an extensive debate. All members spoke. And I think President Zelensky brought with him strength of the European Union. And this was very clear. We committed to developing our efforts to increase step by step our support to Ukraine. And this is not competing assistance, competing with anybody else, but the transatlantic alliance has existed for decades and has been a genuine success. It dates from the Cold War. It was very important after the Cold War, and it is still and will remain very important. But we do not determine our position based on the position of others. Whatever happens, we will support Ukraine, just as we have supported it since the 24th of February 2022.
Whatever happens next, it was very clear today from the meeting that there's a strong support by our member states towards Ukraine and from the European Union as one towards Ukraine. We are entering now the third year of Russia's brutal war of aggression in Ukraine. And it was discussed that basically it is interesting to see that Putin has struggled to define what could be a success for him. On the contrary, you see that he does not meet his strategic goals. For example, we discussed the fact that NATO, that was one of his main points, that he wanted to avoid a presence and the strengthening of NATO. The opposite has happened. NATO is stronger today with 2 more members. It was clear that today Ukraine has a fortified, strong army with an industrial base that is amazingly delivering at speed and with modern equipment for Ukraine. If we look at our common cooperation with our friends and partners and allies, the United States, so that if you look at the military equipment, around 40% have been provided by the United States and 47% by the European Union. So there's also a good balance in the work that has been done by all of us in the last 3 years. The main message today was full support for Ukraine for as long as it takes.
Prime Minister.
December 19.
Today is the 19th of December. And I understand that everyone would like to have a long-lasting and good solution, peace, long-lasting peace, and everybody is thinking along the lines of great geopolitical solutions. Hungary has certain limits. Well, the size is one, and obviously our international impact can be just as big as we are. And as a result, we're not thinking along the lines of geopolitical solutions. That's in the big boys' league. We're thinking in smaller terms. We're talking a lot about European values. One is, which is the most important, is life. We have to save lives. Christmas is coming up. I don't see a problem with saving lives on the front line, at least during the 3 days of the Orthodox Christmas. I don't think that the two sides could not agree to swap 700 war prisoners. Obviously, this could be described as something small compared to geopolitical objectives. Well, yeah, this is small, but these 700 people going back to their own homes, to their own families, I think that would make a difference. That would be fantastic. So this is where we're trying, Hungary as a small country, to achieve something in this respect. Now, the US. We've had a very intellectually stimulating debate today, and I think we all agreed on the fact that the future and security of Europe depends greatly on whether or not we can maintain our transatlantic cooperation. And maintaining this cooperation means that the two pillars work together, that is, Europe and the States. In the United States, on January 20th, we're going to have a new president. And I suggest to us, to ourselves, to Europeans, to have strategic patience. We should not do anything that could go against this future transatlantic relationship.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Henry Foy, Financial Times. Forgive me, but I have to repeat the questions that my colleague just asked because you didn't answer them. Mr. President, Madam President, Zelensky said that European security guarantees would not be sufficient without America doing the same. Do you agree with that? Yes or no? And secondly, why haven't European leaders been able to convince him that they can defend Ukraine without US support? And Mr. Orban, you want peace in Ukraine, as you keep saying. To achieve peace, will you not ask your good friend Donald Trump to give Ukraine the same guarantees that Hungary has? That security guarantees from America will stop Mr. Putin bombing the cities of Ukraine. And why not?
President.
So, perhaps I didn't get the question right, but on your question on the security guarantees, some of our member states have already concluded bilateral security arrangements with Ukraine without any question and have signed on the G7 declaration of support to Ukraine. That's good. Of course, we also need to know more regarding the plans of the next US administration. At the European Union's level, we will continue to support, as we've said, the Ukrainian armed forces. As you know, 50 billion euros in military support and training of 65,000 soldiers as part of a EU mission. And we want to strengthen Ukraine's defense capabilities as part of our own. This was discussed also with President Zelensky, that it is important, and perhaps I was not clear in answering the first question, this is important to harden, to strengthen the Ukrainian defense industry. It is impressive to see how much they have developed and how efficient and effective they are in the production. So the goal is to invest money not in our own defense industry or procurement outside the European Union, but to invest in the Ukrainian defense industry. This brings income. And as I said, they are scaling up rapidly and producing at an amazing speed. Then the discussion also focused not only on the military, but also on the economic support. I have described the economic support, which is also important in my introductory remarks. So the economic viability of Ukraine must be given, as the military survival must be given also. And speaking of military equipment, yes, there was a discussion about what is needed else. The priority is for sure the supply of air defense systems. The equipment and training of Ukrainian brigades was one of the strong demands of President Zelensky, and all these topics we have discussed today.
Well, we discussed very frankly with President Zelensky. He explained us this is not time to speculate on scenarios. It's the time, as I said, to strengthen Ukraine for all the scenarios. And we stand with Ukraine in all the scenarios. If the war continues, if the peace comes, if it's time to recovery, if it's time to negotiate. But only Ukraine has the legitimacy as aggressive country to decide that if, when and how can go for negotiations. And we respect the sovereign legitimacy of Ukraine, and we stand supporting Ukrainian people in their struggle for a just and lasting and comprehensive peace.
Ami a nekem szánt kérdést illeti.
As to the question put to me, in the past 3 years, what I saw was that there is no solution on the battleground. I saw people saying things new. I saw new weapons. I see hundreds of people dying, people maimed, women remaining without their husbands, and children remaining without their fathers. So I saw many things, but I don't see how this would bring a solution. Now, if you can't find a solution on the battleground, then you have to do something else. You have to communicate, you have to talk, you have to negotiate, you have to have diplomacy. Diplomacy should take precedence over military engagement. diplomacy should lead the way. Otherwise, we won't see the end of this war. We will only see losses and losses.
We have time for one final question. I'll take Anna.
Hi, thanks. Ana Marques Neves for the Portuguese news agency Lusa. I have a question for President, and I'll do it in Portuguese if I may.
Your work was praised at today's summit. You started on time, finished at a decent time, and I'm just wondering whether this augurs well and what you're planning on doing, whether this effectiveness will continue.
I wonder if you think that it's possible to have unity, I'm here, between the US and Europe, namely to the support to the Ukraine. And you also mentioned that the EU is preparing for different scenarios regarding the US, so I would like to know which scenarios are you talking about. And for Prime Minister Orban, I'm here. In your contacts, I would like to know if in your contacts with Mr. Trump, you were able to understand how he will end up the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. Thank you so much.
President Costa.
Well, I will answer in Portuguese also. Bom, só o futuro dirá se foi sorte de...
I don't know whether it was beginner's luck, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the members of the European Council. It wouldn't have been possible without that. Wouldn't have been possible, and also for all the support behind the scenes to prepare this Council. We had a clear objective. We wanted to really focus on the leader's role, which is to have a strategic discussion, a political discussion, and leave the drafting work to be done by Coreper, by our ambassadors, and they did an excellent job in line with the indications, guidance of all of the leaders. So I'd like to thank everybody. Without the support of the Commission, none of this would have been possible. So we have discussed the necessities and the different scenarios that are needed to put Ukraine in a position of strength, as we've done over the last almost 3 years now. We should not forget that when the war began, in what a difficult situation Ukraine was and how much we have achieved together. What I want to emphasize also is we just heard the Prime Minister Orban speaking about military engagement. I would insist that we have to add this is not only a military engagement, this is a full-blown war unleashed by Russia against Ukraine. And if Russia stops fighting, there is immediate peace.
Prime Minister.
Just to answer to your question, to be very clear, I don't have any mandate to speak about the intention of other leaders. So recently, in the last 2 weeks, I had a personal meeting with Donald Trump, yes. I had a long conversation by phone with the President of Russia, Putin. And I just recently met the President of Turkey, Erdogan. And of course, everybody has something in their mind, no question of that. But it's not my mandate to speak about. What I can speak about is only my intentions. So, sorry, I can't say more on that.
That's it for tonight. Thank you very much, and happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. On présente aujourd'hui tous les membres du Conseil européen au niveau négociation. So now is not the time to keep sanctions package against Russia. We approve the global engagement of the European Union. The starting point For this is clear. The world is multipolar. Multipolarity creates new opportunities to deep like global south and acknowledge that both the south and the north are in fact plural. The upcoming informal leaders retreat on defense on the 3rd of February. Religious and ethnic minorities. The European Union is already instrumental for the lives of European citizens. I have therefore informed leaders.
Invasion. Putin is redoubling efforts to make gains, so will be steadfast. So we need to make sure that we have secured economic and financial systems early days in the year. Some others could follow during that year as well. We will discuss the situation in Syria. And minorities will be protected. It's on the ground. Continue addressing the future steps, and we are already Syria's biggest donor, the annual Syria conferences. They can be a powerful catalysis to have access in the whole country of Syria.
Háború van Ukrajnában, Közel-Keleten, Afrikában, és az eszkaláció veszélye pedig álló. Az illegális migráció. Nekem szerencsém volt, mert nem ez volt az első elnökségem. Onnan tudom a...
Son autonomie, est-ce que c'est pas un constat de faiblesse qu'il a fait, un constat des divisions?
He has something in their mind, no question of that, but it's not my mandate to speak about. What I